gang. "This diamond game looks easy," said Bond. "Why don't we just go on doing it together? 2 or 3 jobs a year will give us good money." "These people aren't fools," said Tiffany. She was angry with him. "I've never had the same carrier twice, and I'm not the only guard. Also, I think they had someone watching us on the plane. They check and double-check everything they do. I've never even seen ABC. I just phone a number in London to get my orders. You have no idea, do you?" Some time later, they went out into the hot night and got a taxi. "I'm staying at the Astor too," said Tiffany. Bond said nothing. He looked out of the taxi window. He wanted to say to her, "Come with me. I like you. Don't be frightened." But Bond couldn't. He had a job to do. At the Astor Hotel, they took the lift to the 5th floor. Bond followed her to the door of her room. She turned angrily and started to say, "Listen, you Bond person." But she stopped and looked into his eyes. He saw that she was crying. Suddenly, she put her arms round him and her face next to his. "Look after yourself, James," she said. "I don't want to lose you." She kissed him long and hard on the lips. Then she turned quickly and went into her room and shut the door behind her. Chapter 9. A Fast Horse. On Saturday, Bond stayed in his hotel room for most of the day and wrote a report to send to London. The diamond pipeline began somewhere near Jack Spang, also known as Rufus B. Say. It ended with Serafimo Spang. The stones came to Shady Tree. Then they went into the House of Diamonds for cutting and selling. Someone known as ABC seemed to be the big boss. He was probably in London. Bond would try to get further up the pipeline using Tiffany Case. He wrote the report in code. At 9 o'clock on Sunday morning, a black Studebaker car stopped outside the Plaza Hotel. Bond was waiting there with his suitcase. He threw it onto the back seat and climbed in next to Leiter. "It's about 200 miles, said Leiter as they drove out of the city. There was a straight, empty road in front of them. Leiter pushed his right foot down to the floor. Suddenly, Bond was thrown back into his seat. He looked at the speedometer. 80, 90, 95 miles an hour. "Not bad for a Studebaker," said Bond. Leiter looked at Bond and smiled. "This isn't a normal Studebaker." At 12:30 they found a place to stop for lunch. Leiter told Bond about Saratoga. "It's a spa town," he said. "For 11 months of the year it's very quiet. People sometimes come to go in the waters or to have mud baths, but that's all. Then for 1 month, August, it goes crazy. It's probably the best race meeting in America, and the place is full of rich people. A lot of the racehorse owners are gangsters, like the Spangs. Sometimes they fix a race. The Spangs hope to get $50,000 from the Shy Smile race." They finished their lunch and drove on. Bond slept for a short time. When he opened his eyes, they were entering Saratoga. There seemed to be horses everywhere. Crossing the streets, walking along the sides of the roads, coming out of lorries. Horse trainers and jockeys talked on street corners. Leiter left Bond at the Sagamore Motel just outside town. They agreed to meet only at night or by accident at the races. "We'll visit the racetrack early tomorrow if Shy Smile is there," Leiter told Bond. "I'll know about this and a lot more after an evening at the Tether. It's an all-night restaurant and bar. Most of the criminals of the racing world go there." At the motel, Bond paid $30 for 3 days and got a key to room 49. He had a shower, dressed, then walked down the road. There was a restaurant on the corner, and he ate a chicken dinner. Afterwards, he bought a Saratogian newspaper. He saw that T. Bell would be riding Shy Smile in the Perpetuities race. Soon after 10 o'clock, Felix Leiter knocked softly on the door of Bond's room and came in. Bond was lying on the bed. Leiter sat down in an armchair and took out a cigarette. "We get up at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning," said Leiter. "They'll be timing Shy Smile at 5:30 a.m. I want to see who's there. The owner of the horse is Pissarro. He's one of the directors of the Tiara Casino in Las Vegas. The jockey is Ting-a-Ling Bell. He's a good rider, but he's not always honest when he's paid well. I want to speak to Ting-a-Ling. The trainer is another gangster, Rosie Budd." "What are you going to do?" asked Bond. "I've got a few ideas," said Leiter. "I'll wake you at 5 o'clock. Bond woke early, and the two men drove to the racetrack. They walked through the trees to the white fence round the track. The early morning air was wonderfully cool, and the sun was beginning to come out. 3 men came through the trees. One of them was leading a large horse. The animal had a white face and white feet. "Don't look too interested in them," warned Leiter. "Turn round and watch the line of other horses coming up the track. I'll watch our friends." Bond turned and looked away. "A man is leading out Shy Smile," said Leiter, "and there's Budd and Pissarro. It's a nice-looking horse. The man is getting on him now. The gangsters have got their watches out. They've seen us, but don't worry. When the horse starts moving, they won't be interested in us. Okay, you can turn round now, James. Shy Smile is on the other side of the track. They're watching him through their binoculars." Bond saw the 2 men with binoculars. They had watches in their hands. "He started," Leiter said. Far away, Bond could see a brown horse moving fast round the top of the track. They watched him turn and come towards them. Horse and rider came quickly round the corner in front of Bond and Leiter, and on towards the watching men. Then the horse was past them, and Bond's eyes moved to the 2 men. He saw them look at their watches to check the time that the horse had taken. Leiter touched Bond on the arm, and they walked back to their car. "He ran well," said Leiter. "Faster than the real Shy Smile could run. If he moves like that, he'll win. Let's get some breakfast, James. Then I'm going to see Ting-a-Ling Bell." After breakfast, Bond spent some time at the racetrack. Later he had lunch. Then he watched and put bets on the afternoon races. It was a beautiful day, and by the end of the afternoon he had won $15. He walked back to the motel and had a shower. Then he found a restaurant and had dinner. Afterwards he walked over to the sales ring and watched racehorses bought and sold. After a time, Bond heard a small noise from the seat behind him. It was Leiter. He sat forward and spoke quietly in Bond's ear. "It's done," he said. "It's cost $3,000, but Ting-a-Ling will do it. See you in the morning, James." Bond didn't look round but went on watching the sales. After a while, he walked slowly back to the motel. He thought about Shy Smile, who wasn't the real Shy Smile, and about Ting-a-Ling Bell, who was being paid to lose the race. He's playing a very dangerous game, thought Bond. Chapter 10. The Race. Bond sat high up in the grandstand and watched Shy Smile's owner through binoculars. Pissarro was at a table in the grandstand restaurant, not far below Bond. Rosie Budd sat opposite him. There was half an hour to wait before the Perpetuities race started. Shy Smile was horse number 10. He was the bottom horse in the betting. The 2 favourites to win were Come Again and Pray Action. Bond put down his binoculars and remembered what Leiter had told him earlier that day. Leiter had gone to see Bell and had told him that he was a private detective. "I know about Shy Smile, who is really Pick a Pepper," Leiter had said to Bell. "If you win, I'll tell everyone what really happened. You'll never ride a racehorse again, Ting-a-ling. Or you can win the race but be disqualified. Knock into the horse nearest to you and stop him winning. Do that, and I'll give you $1,000 now and another $2,000 after the race." A frightened Bell had agreed, but he wanted the $2,000 to be given to him at the Acme Mud and Sulphur Baths. He went there every evening after the races at 6 o'clock. Bond had the $2,000 in his pocket. If Shy Smile got disqualified and lost the race, he would go to the Acme Baths at 6 o'clock and meet Bell. When it was time, the horses came down to the starting place. First came number 1, Come Again, a big black horse. Then came Pray Action, a fast-looking grey horse. The big brown horse with a white face and white feet was behind all the other horses. A nervous-looking Ting-a-ling Bell sat on his back. The horses came to the starting gate, and Bond watched the race through binoculars. A bell sounded, and they moved quickly away. Shy Smile number 10 was close to the fence. Horse number 5 was just in front. Come Again and Pray Action came along next to him. Shy Smile was behind them. Round the corner, and now Come Again was at the front, and Shy Smile was fourth. Down the long straight part of the racecourse, and Shy Smile and Pray Action rushed past number 5. Shy Smile was almost next to the front horse. Now Pray Action and Shy Smile were side by side, together, moving quickly away from the others, coming to the last corner, racing towards the finish. There was a camera filming the race. Bond stopped breathing. Now, he thought. Do it now. Pray Action was nearest the white fence. Ting-a-ling Bell moved Shy Smile nearer to him. Ting-a-ling looked away so that he could not see the grey horse next to him. Suddenly, Shy Smile's head hit Pray Action's head. He pushed Pray Action towards the fence. Pray Action's jockey stood up and had to slow his horse down. Angry shouts came from the crowd. Now Shy Smile was in front, going faster, faster. Moments later, Ting-a-ling Bell took him past the finishing post. He had won. Or had he? Very clever riding, Ting-a-ling, thought Bond. Some minutes after the end of the race, a voice came over the loudspeaker.
"Attention, please. Number 10, Shy Smile, has been disqualified. Number 3, Pray Action, is the winner."
Bond smiled and walked towards the bar. Chapter 11. Mud Baths. The small red bus had the words Acme Mud and Sulphur Baths on its side. It went down a short hill towards a group of dirty grey buildings. A tall yellow chimney stood up from the centre. Black smoke came from the chimney. The bus stopped by the baths. There was a seat near the entrance, under some dead-looking trees. Bond sat there for a few minutes, trying to prepare himself. He was not happy. He did not like the look of the place, and he did not like what was going to happen to him inside. But after a few more moments, he went inside. The bad smell of sulphur was strong. A woman sat behind a desk, reading a paperback book. She looked up. "Yes?" "I'd like a bath," said Bond. "Mud or sulphur?" asked the woman. "Mud," said Bond. He paid for a ticket. At the back of the room were two doors. One said mud, the other sulphur. Bond went through the mud door. He found himself in a long room with a window in the roof and changing rooms along the walls. It was hot and steamy in the room. 2 men sat at a table playing cards. They were naked, except for towels around their waists. They looked up at Bond. "Ticket?" one of the men asked. Bond gave him his ticket, and the man gave him a key for one of the changing rooms. He pointed at the door at the end of the room. "The baths are through there," the man said. There was nothing in the changing room except a thin towel. Bond took off his clothes and put the towel round his waist. He pushed the money into his coat pocket. Then he walked out and locked the changing room door behind him. He went through the door at the end of the room. A large black man with no hair met him on the other side. "Follow me," said the black man. The room was square and grey, and there were long tables against the walls. On each table was a heavy wooden box like a coffin. It had a wooden top that covered most of the box. Men's hot, wet faces showed above the sides of most coffins. Bond followed the black man to a wooden seat next to 2 shower rooms. Bond sat on the seat, and the man went across to an empty coffin. He put a sheet into it. Next, he went to the middle of the room and got 2 buckets. They were filled with hot brown mud. He poured mud into the empty coffin until the bottom was full. He left it to cool and went to a bath full of ice. From this he took several wet towels, then walked round the room. At each coffin he stopped to put a cold towel around the head of the red-faced man inside. When he had finished, he walked across to the empty coffin. "Okay," he said to Bond. The man took Bond's towel and key. Bond climbed into the coffin and lay down in the hot mud. The man put a cold towel under Bond's head, then took one of the buckets of hot mud. He put the mud all over Bond's body. When he had finished, only Bond's face and a very small part of his body round his heart was white. The man then pulled the sheet round Bond until Bond could only move his fingers and his head. He felt like a trapped animal. 20 minutes, the man said to Bond. He closed the lid. It was 6 o'clock. Bond was uncomfortable and hot. At 3 minutes past 6, the door opened and Ting-a-ling Bell came into the room. The black man came across and put a towel around Bond's head. It felt wonderfully cold. The jockey climbed into a coffin in front of Bond. The black man covered him in mud and put the sheet round him. Then he shut the lid over Ting-a-ling's body. Bond closed his eyes. How was he going to give Ting-a-ling the money? In the changing room after the bath? On the way out? In the bus? "Okay, nobody move!" It was a hard, frightening voice and came from the doorway. Bond opened his eyes. The door to the room was open and a man stood by it. Another man walked quickly into the middle of the room. They both carried guns and had black hoods over their heads. There were holes cut in the hoods for their eyes and mouths. "Where's the jockey?" the man in the middle of the room asked. He moved across the room and hit the black man with his gun. The black man, afraid, pointed. The man with the gun walked towards Ting-a-ling. When he went past Bond, he stopped and looked for a few seconds. Then he moved over to the jockey. "Hello, Ting-a-ling," he said coldly. "What's wrong?" The jockey's voice was high and frightened. "Wrong?" said the man with the gun. "Maybe you've never heard of a horse called Shy Smile. Maybe you weren't there when he was disqualified this afternoon." The jockey started to cry softly. It wasn't my fault, boss. It was an accident." "My friends think that it wasn't an accident." The man put the gun to the jockey's head. "They found $1,000 hidden in your room. Where did it come from?" "I've saved it!" cried Ting-a-ling. "It's all the money I've got!" The man took the gun away. "You've been riding too much, Ting-a-ling. You need a rest. In a hospital, maybe." He walked across and picked up one of the buckets of hot mud and walked back. The jockey started shouting, "No! No! No! As the hot brown mud came out of the bucket and onto his head. When it was empty, the man threw the bucket across the room. "Don't call the police," he said as he walked to the door. He laughed and pointed at Tingling's coffin. "You'd better get him out before he begins to cook." Still laughing, the two men went out of the room. Some time later, Felix Leiter was sitting in Bond's room at the motel. "What happened next?" he asked. "The two ticket men came running in," said Bond. "They took the lid off Tingling's box and pulled off the sheet. Then they carried him to the shower. He was half dead, and all of his face was burned." "Describe the two gunmen," said Leiter. "The man by the door was small and thin," said Bond. "The other man was big and fat. He had a red wart on his right thumb." "Went," said Leiter. "And the other man was Kidd. They worked for the Spangs, and they always worked together. Wint is always sucking that wart on his thumb. He's called Windy. He gets sick in cars and trains, and he thinks that planes are going to crash at any minute. Kidd's got white hair, but he's only about 30 years old. I'll tell the police about them and about Shy Smile. I won't tell them about you, James. I'll be back in an hour." Bond got dressed, then went to find a telephone. He spoke to Shady Tree. "Shy Smile didn't win," he said. "I know," said Shady Tree. "Tell me where you are staying, and I'll send you another $1,000. You'll get the money in the morning. Now, listen carefully. Come to New York and get a plane to Los Angeles. Then get another plane to Las Vegas. There is a room booked for you at the Tiara Casino. At 10 o'clock on Thursday evening, go to the center table of the 3 blackjack tables near the bar. Sit down and bet the $1,000. Do this 5 times. Then get up and leave the table. Don't bet any more, but wait for more orders. Okay?" "Okay," said Bond. Later, Felix Leiter returned, and he and Bond went out to dinner. "My boss wants me to go to Las Vegas," said Leiter when they were eating. "He wants to know where the real Shy Smile's body is buried." "Then we're both going to Las Vegas," said Bond. He told him about Shady Tree's orders. "I'll be there by the end of the week," said Leiter. "Maybe we could meet sometimes. Listen, Pinkertons have got a man there. His name's Ernie Cureo. I'll tell him that you're coming and he'll look after you. But be careful, James." Bond smiled. "I'll be careful, but I've got to get further down the pipeline. Also, I've got to get close to Serafimo Spang. I really don't like the Spangs. I don't like what they did to that black man and Tingling." "Are you still an agent with a 00 number?" asked Leiter. "The number that means that you're allowed to kill?" "Yes," said Bond quietly. "I am." "Good," said Leiter. Chapter 12. Las Vegas. Bond came out of the airport building at Las Vegas. A voice said, "Are you going to the Tiara?" Bond turned and saw a short, heavy man with large brown eyes. "Yes," said Bond. "Okay, let's go." Bond followed him to his car. It was a taxi. He threw his suitcase onto the back seat and climbed in after it. They drove out of the airport. "I'm Ernie Cureo," said the driver. "I'm a friend of Felix Leiter. He told me to look after you. Are you staying long?" "Maybe for a few days," said Bond. After driving for some time, the wide road went on through lines of colored lights and signs until they were in downtown Las Vegas. The sun was uncomfortably hot. "We're coming into the famous strip now," said Cureo after a minute or two. Here are all the big hotels and casinos. That's the Flamingo, and that's the Sands. And here's the Desert Inn and the Sahara. Over there is the Thunderbird, and across the road is the Tiara. He slowed down and stopped outside the Spang Hotel. I guess you know all about Mr. Spang, said Kireo. I know a little, said Bond. You can tell me the rest another time. Okay, said Kireo. I'm sure you'll be safe on your first night. Bond had lunch next to the Tiara's big swimming pool, then went to his room. It was very comfortable, with expensive furniture, a radio and a television. He slept for 4 hours. During this time, a secret wire recorder under the table next to the bed recorded complete silence. When Bond woke up, it was 7 o'clock. The wire recorder heard him phone the hotel desk. I want to speak to Miss Tiffany Case. A pause, then, all right, please tell her that Mr. James Bond called. The recorder heard him move about the room. It heard the noise of the shower, and at 7:30 p.m. it heard the noise of the key in the lock when he went out and shut the door. Half an hour later, the recorder heard a knock on the door. A man wearing a waiter's uniform came into the room with a bowl of fruit. There was a note with it. From the hotel manager. The man walked quickly to the table by the bed and removed the wire from the recorder. He put a new wire in the machine. Then he put the fruit on the table and went out and closed the door. For several hours after that, the wire recorder heard nothing. Bond sat in the Tiara bar and slowly drank a martini. Has Mr. Spang been in tonight? He asked the barman. I haven't seen him, said the barman. He usually comes in about 11 o'clock. Bond walked across to the blackjack tables. He stopped at the center table, the table where he was going to sit at 10 o'clock. It was now 8:30. 8 players sat round the table opposite the dealer. The dealer was about 40 years old. He dealt 2 cards into the 8 numbered spaces on the table in front of the bets. The bets were mostly 5 or 10 silver dollars, or counters worth $20. Nobody spoke. The waitresses moved around in the space inside the circle of tables. From this space, 2 tough-looking men with guns at their waists watched the tables and players carefully. Bond watched the game for a short time, then walked to the Opal Room restaurant. He sat at a corner table and ordered a steak and a martini. Then he ate his dinner and thought about the rest of the evening. He was becoming bored with this job, and he did not like taking orders from a cheap gangster or trying to please Mr. Spang. Just before 10 o'clock, he walked into the casino. There are 2 ways of doing this job, he thought. Sit and wait for something to happen, or make something happen. Chapter 13. An Interesting Evening. The dealer now at the center blackjack table was Tiffany Case. So that's her job at the Tiara, thought Bond. All the blackjack dealers at the tables were pretty women. They all wore the same smart Western clothes, short grey skirt with a wide black belt, a grey shirt and a black handkerchief round the neck, a grey cowboy hat and black boots. So, Tiffany is going to help me win $5,000, Bond thought. He sat down opposite her. Hi, she said, smiling politely. Bond put 10 $100 notes across the betting line on the table. One of the 2 tough-looking men walked across and stood next to Tiffany. He was called a pit boss. Maybe this man would like new cards, the man said, looking at Bond. He gave Tiffany a new pack of cards, then he moved away. Tiffany shuffled the new cards quickly, then cut them, divided them into 2 parts, and put them flat on the table. But Bond saw that the 2 halves were not quite the same. When she shuffled them again, she was going to put the cards back into the same place. She put them in front of Bond to cut. He watched her shuffle them again, cleverly moving the cards just where she needed them. and so the new pack of cards was fixed. She dealt him 2 cards, then gave 2 to herself. Bond looked at his 2 cards, a jack and a 10. He looked up at the girl and shook his head. He didn't want another card. She turned her cards over. They added up to 16. She took another card, a king. Now the 3 cards added up to more than 21. She had busted. She had silver dollars and counters for $20 next to her. But the pit boss moved quickly to her side with a thin $1,000 plaque. She pushed it across to Bond. Bond bet again. She dealt him 2 more cards. 17. Again he shook his head. She had 12 and took 2 more cards, a 3 and a 9. Busted again. And the pit boss was there with another $1,000 plaque. With his next bet, Bond got cards that added up to 19. She turned over a 10 and a 7 and had to stand. Another $1,000 plaque came to Bond. More people were coming into the gambling room now. Soon they were going to be round the tables. This was his last bet. After this, he was supposed to get up from the table and leave her. She dealt him 2 cards, and he picked them up. 20. And she picked up 2 10s. Bond smiled. Both took another card and busted. She quickly dealt him 2 more cards, just as 3 more players came to the table. He had 19, and she had 16. And that was the end. Bond took his last $1,000 plaque. He got up from the table and looked across at the girl. "Thank you," he said. "You deal beautifully." Tiffany Case looked hard at Bond. "You're welcome," she said. Bond turned and walked away to the bar. So now he had his $5,000. He remembered what Shady Tree had told him. "Don't bet any more." Bond smiled, then finished his drink and walked across the room to the nearest roulette table. $5,000 on red, he told the croupier. The croupier looked closely at him, then put the $5,000 plaques onto the red. Bond saw him push a button under the table with his knee. A moment later, the pit boss walked across to the table. At the same time, the croupier turned the wheel. Bond lit a cigarette. He had a wonderful feeling of freedom. Nobody was going to tell him what to do anymore, and he knew that he was going to win. The wheel turned more slowly, and the little ball fell into its red place. 36. Red, said the croupier. He pulled in some losing counters and pushed some money across to the winning players. Then he took a large, thin $5,000 plaque and put it next to Bond. "Put it on black," said Bond. Now several more people came to watch. Bond felt their eyes on him, but he looked across the table to the pit boss. The man looked a little nervous. Bond smiled at him as the wheel turned. 17. Black, said the croupier. There were noises of excitement from the watching crowd. They watched the croupier push the big plaque in front of Bond. Now there was another man standing next to the pit boss. He was a big, square-shaped man, and he was looking at Bond with hard, bright eyes. It was Serafimo Spang. He looked a little like his brother in London. Now for the last throw, thought Bond, and then I'm leaving here with $20,000 of Spang money. He looked across at his employer. Spang's eyes were still watching him. Red, said Bond. He gave the $5,000 plaque to the croupier. The wheel turned. The little ball fell into its place. 5. Red, said the croupier, and there were more noises of excitement from the people around the table. I'll take my money, said Bond. Thanks. Bond put the 4 plaques in his pocket and moved through the crowd. He walked across to the cashier's desk. 3 notes of 5,000 and 5 of 1s, he said to the man. The cashier took Bond's 4 plaques and gave him the money. Bond went to the hotel desk and asked for an airmail envelope. Then he moved to a writing desk next to the wall. He put the 3 large notes in the envelope and wrote on the front, "The Managing Director, Universal Export, Regent's Park, London NW1, England." Then he bought stamps at the desk and put the envelope into the US mailbox. He hoped it would be safe. He looked at his watch. 5 minutes to midnight. He looked round the room for the last time. There was a new dealer at Tiffany Case's table, and Mr. Spang was not there anymore. Bond walked back to his room and locked the door. It had been an interesting evening. Chapter 14. Gunfights. For most of the next day, Bond waited at the hotel for something to happen. When he got tired of waiting, he phoned Ernie Cureo. "Let's meet for a talk," he said. Cureo came to get him that evening, and they drove away from the Strip. "What happened last night?" asked Ernie Cureo. "Did you win anything?" "I won some money at roulette," said Bond. "It won't worry Spang. He's rich." "How does he spend his money?" "He's crazy about the Old West," said Cureo. "He bought himself a ghost town out on Highway 95. It's called Spectreville. It has a Western saloon bar, a hotel, and even an old railway station. And Spang bought one of the old trains. He keeps it in the station at Spectreville. At weekends he takes his friends for a ride to Rhyolite. It's another ghost town, about 50 miles away. It gets lots of visitors." "That's why I haven't heard from Spang or his friends all day," thought Bond. "It's Friday, so they'll be out playing trains." After some minutes, Cureo said, "We're being followed, front and back. Do you see that black Chevrolet in front with the 2 men? They've got 2 driving mirrors and they're watching us. Behind us is a little red Jaguar. 2 more men with golf clubs on the back seat. They belong to the Detroit Purple Gang, and they don't play golf. I'll try and lose them." Bond took a $1,000 note from his pocket and pushed it into Cureo's shirt pocket. "That's for any damage to your car." "Okay, Ernie. Let's see what you can do." He took his Beretta out of its holster and held it in his hand. "This is what I've been waiting for," he thought. It was a straight road with not much traffic. Ahead, the tops of the mountains were yellow in the evening sun. They were riding easily along with the Jaguar behind them and the black Chevrolet in front. Without warning, Cureo pushed his foot down hard and stopped the car suddenly. The Jaguar hit them from behind, and there was a crash of metal and glass. Cureo then drove away fast down the road. Bond looked out of the back window. "They're out of the car," he said. "The windscreen is broken. There's glass everywhere. They're trying to pull the front part of the car off the wheels. Good work, Ernie. It stopped them for a little while." "Get down," said Cureo. "The Chevrolet has stopped at the side of the road. They may try some shooting." Bond felt the car move forward fast. Cureo was half lying on the front seat, driving with one hand. There were 2 loud cracks as they went past the Chevrolet. Glass fell around Bond. The car almost went off the road before Cureo got it straight again. Bond pushed out the broken glass in the back window. The Chevrolet was coming after them. "I'm going to turn suddenly and stop in the next side road," said Cureo. "It'll give you a clear shot when they come round the corner after us." "Now!" The car went round the corner on 2 wheels, and Bond held onto his seat. The car stopped suddenly. Bond jumped out, his gun in his hand. The Chevrolet came round the corner fast. Bond fired his gun. Crack! 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 All 4 bullets hit the car. The Chevrolet went across the road, hit a tree, turned completely round and went slowly over onto its side. And stopped. Bond watched fire come from the front of it. Someone was trying to get out of a window. Soon the flames were going to find petrol on the ground and the whole car was going to explode. It was going to be too late for the man inside. Bond heard a sound behind him. He turned to see Ernie Cureo fall from the driver's seat of the taxi and across the passenger seat. Bond forgot the burning Chevrolet and pulled open the car door. There was blood all over Cureo's arm. Bond pulled him carefully onto the passenger seat, and his eyes opened. "Get me out of here," he said, "and drive fast. That Jaguar will soon be coming to find us. Then get me to a doctor." "Okay, Ernie," said Bond. He got into the driving seat and started the car. He moved fast down the road, away from the burning Chevrolet. "Can you see anything in the mirror?" asked Cureo. "There's a car coming fast after us," said Bond. "It's the Jaguar." "We have to find somewhere to hide," said Cureo. "There is a drive-in cinema near here. There. Turn right. See those lights? Get in there quick."